studying the age of fossils. No one was around to observe fossils forming or to see other natural processes occurring millions of years ago. Yet, we can infer what happened in the past based on what we know about the natural processes that occur today. Scientists assume that the geological events and phenomena that happen today also happened in the past and that they apply everywhere in nature. The scientific principle is called uniformitarianism. We can use these assumptions to interpret fossil data. For example, scientists know that today sedimentary rock forms when sediments carried by air, ice, water, or gravity are deposited in layers in a new location. Over time, the weight of the sediment layers puts pressure on the layers below them, and sedimentary rock forms. So we can assume that sedimentation and sedimentary rock formation in ancient seas occurred in a similar way. Relative ages of rock layers. Sedimentary rock forms in layers. The law of superposition states that in a sequence of undisturbed sedimentary rocks, the oldest layers are at the bottom, and the youngest ones are at the top. The oldest layers are deposited first. Over time, these layers are buried as new sediment gets deposited on top of the existing layers. This layering of rock is very noticeable in the Grand Canyon because several of the rock layers are different colors. By studying the layers in undisturbed sedimentary rocks, scientists can find the relative age of each layer. The relative age of a rock layer relates to whether that layer is older or younger than other rock layers. Geologic columns. Scientists can also compare the relative ages of rock layers in different areas. This comparison is done using a geologic column. A geologic column is an ordered arrangement of rock layers that is based on the relative ages of the rocks, with the oldest rocks at the bottom of the column. It is made by piecing together different rock sequences from different areas. A geologic column, therefore, represents an ideal image of a rock layer sequence that doesn't actually exist in any one place on Earth. It is a conceptual model that shows the order of different rock layers and fossils over time. Scientists can compare a rock layer from one location with a similar layer in a geologic column that has the same fossils or that has the same relative position. If the two layers match, then they probably formed around the same time. Absolute ages of rock layers. Some scientists want to know the absolute or actual age of rocks or fossils. Scientists know that certain unstable particles that make up matter in rocks and living organisms change into different stable particles at a constant rate. This process is called radioactive decay. Some particles decay or break down in just hours. Other particles decay over millions of years. For example, one type of particle in igneous rock is radioactive uranium. When igneous rock forms, it contains a small amount of radioactive uranium. Over millions of years, these uranium particles decay to form lead particles. Scientists know the rate at which particular radioactive particles decay. The time needed for half of a sample of a radioactive substance to decay is called the half-life, because each radioactive substance decays at a specific constant rate. Each radioactive substance has a specific half-life. The half-life of radioactive uranium is 704 million years. So it takes 704 million years for half of that rock's uranium to change to lead. Radiometric dating. The method of finding the absolute age of rock based on comparing the amounts of unstable radioactive particles to stable particles in a sample is called radiometric dating. For example, at any point in time, scientists can measure the amount of uranium and lead in a sample of igneous rock and find the rock's age. Fossils do not contain the unstable particles that are used in radiometric dating. So scientists cannot use radiometric dating directly on fossils. Instead, they use radiometric dating on igneous rock layers. Igneous rock forms from cooled magma and lava. Fossils are not found in igneous rock because the high temperature of the molten rock destroys the remains. Scientists determine the age of fossils by first identifying the age of the igneous rock layers above and below the fossils. Data from igneous rock layers above a fossil provide an absolute age for the rock that formed after the fossil formed. Data from the igneous rock layers below provide the absolute age for the rock that formed before the fossil formed. This information gives scientists a time span in which the fossilized organism lived. Index fossils. Scientists observe that certain types of fossils appear only in certain layers of rock on Earth, and only for a short span of time. By finding the age of igneous rock layers above and below these fossil layers, scientists can determine the time span during which the fossilized organisms lived. These fossils, called index fossils, can then be used to estimate the absolute age of all the rock layers in which they are found. To be an index fossil, the organism from which the fossil formed must have lived during a relatively short geologic time span. The fossils must be relatively common and must be found over a large area on Earth. Index fossils must also have features that make them easy to distinguish from other fossils. Geologic timescale. Evidence from absolute dating indicates that Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. To help make sense of this vast amount of time, scientists use the geologic timescale to organize Earth's history. The geologic timescale divides Earth's history into intervals of time, defined by major events or changes on Earth. The largest category of time is the eon, which is further divided into eras, periods, epochs, and ages. Dividing that long period of time into smaller parts makes it easier for scientists to communicate their findings about rocks and fossils.